FeSME is the automatic interest in women's safety and the desire to help women in need. This is accomplished via the sacrifice of men and the belief that men are expendable. FeSME filters our view of the world and our compassion by focusing on the needs of women and ignoring the needs of men. We all have it. How much do you have? Let's do a quick experiment. Imagine you're being seated at your favorite restaurant, and as you're making your way to your table, you see a woman at a corner table crying. What's your first response? I've asked this question to thousands of people in the workshops I give, and their responses are similar. Poor dear. She's upset. She needs support. Is there something I can do? Now erase that image, and this time, as you're being seated in the same restaurant, you see a man at the same corner table crying. What's your first response? Is it different from your response to the crying woman? Those thousands of people had a different response to the crying man. They thought there was something wrong with him, that he might be drunk, and that he needed to be avoided. How about you? For most people, the woman got compassion, but the man got ignored, avoided, or judged. Did you have a different response for the man and for the woman? If so, why would your compassion change? Something powerful and automatic is going on here. This is FeSME. So let's recap. FeSME is the automatic desire to protect women and to use the expendability of men to do so. This has been a necessity among all successful cultures. In order to survive, the cultures needed to protect the women and use the disposability of men. An example is South American hunter-gatherer cultures where there were frequent raids to steal the other tribe's women. In some tribes, 60% of the males died trying to protect them. No women, no culture. It's been essential to protect the women. This pattern remains intact today with almost everyone having a strong dose of FeSME, even though FeSME is no longer really a necessity. The pattern that lives on is to focus on the safety and needs of women and not pay much attention to the safety and needs of men. Think back to the Titanic and the willingness of men to sacrifice in order to keep women safe. That's an example of modern FeSME. Let's take another quiz to gauge your degree of FeSME. We all know that over 98% of our war dead are males. Most of us don't like the idea of men dying in wars, but we put up with it. Now imagine for a second that the president decreed that since men and women are equal, it was time for women to do as much dying as men in our wars, and the men should be less than 2% of the war deaths, and the women the other 98%. The caskets start coming back filled with women. How would you react to the president's idea? Most of us would protest vehemently. Somehow, it's easier for us to accept men dying than to accept women being put in harm's way and dying. This is FeSME. Female Safety and Male Expendability. Why should the sex of the dead matter? It does, and this is FeSME. If you were positive on both the examples above, don't feel bad. Just about everyone has FeSME. It's been a cultural necessity. Not convinced that it still exists? Just have a look around you, and you're sure to see examples of FeSME. It is everywhere. In our judiciary, in our legislatures, in our educational system, our media. It's every place, and since everyone has FeSME, people simply don't see it. Let's take a few examples. Women and children first. FeSME. We have 7 national commissions for women's health in the U.S. and none for men. FeSME. We have a Violence Against Women Act, but no Violence Against Men Act. FeSME. Men are 93% of the workplace deaths. FeSME. 8 times more men than women are incarcerated for non-payment of child support. FeSME. Men are 80% of completed suicides, and yet there are no services specifically for men who are suicidal. FeSME. When claims were made that our girls were in need educationally, Congress took quick action. When boys face a similar problem, nothing is done. FeSME. All of these examples, like our first example at the restaurant, sees the problems of girls and women getting compassion, attention, and action taken while the problems of boys and men are ignored. FeSME is an outdated, archaic stance that's no longer a necessity, and yet we still act on it without awareness. My main concern is that this unconscious automatic action is routinely ignoring the needs of men. Men simply don't get compassion. Those with a strong case of FeSME will scoff at this, since they only have concern for females. We need to get past that limited viewpoint and start to see the needs of everyone. Limiting our own FeSME would be a good start. Tell your legislatures they have had a bad case of FeSME. Tell the media and the academia the same thing. It's time we stopped this unconscious bigotry that hurts our men and boys. And don't forget, men are good.